starting with What Did You Expect? You did 3 records and you were putting out one every single year,
Right. I
right?
put
Yeah.
one. So a little bit about me. Yeah, I put one out in 79, and then in 1980, and then 1982, and then I was working in D.C. and a guy told me about a guy that got fired, and that I should look him up. So when I got home, I sent my 3 records blindly to Howard, and that's when he called me, and I went and did the show, and then everybody I knew, they got sitcoms or they did this or they were going on. And I was just on this radio show that just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And I remember saying to myself, God damn, Rich Jennings got his own sitcom. And then a year later, Jenny's sitcom is canceled and I'm making twice what I had been making that at, a year ago. So like I was like the little pig that was building the brick house. You know what I mean?
Yeah. When you started working at Howard, were you an on-air talent right from the beginning?
Yeah, but not much. What happened was they called me in to sit in on a talent contest over the radio. So I walked in and Howard was there and Robin and Fred, and I sat down and I was on air. Yeah, I wasn't doing anything else. I was on air and farting around. And at the end of the day, they said, wow, you're a lot of fun. Why don't you come back next week? So I came back one day a week for 3 years for free. But I integrated myself into the show and I started giving them ideas and making them funnier. And, when we went to mornings, they said, well, hey, we need you, and we went to the moon. We went to Pluto. Syndicated to Philadelphia, then syndicated to Washington, and then LA, and then boom,
Did radio ever cross your mind as a possible career before you got picked up by Howard?
No, not even. I used to, they used to play my jokes. Well, I had 9221 jokeline forever. And then they got the bright idea, let us play it on the radio. So that for a couple of years, they would call my house. They'd say they were calling 516-922-WINE. But what they were actually dialing was my house. And I used to put a specific message on there for Bob Buckman, who was the morning guy. And for a couple of years, what they'd do is they'd call 922-WINE at 8 o'clock. And I'd tell jokes until I started getting a little too dirty. Then they'd hang up on me and set off the sound effects of a bomb and go into the number 1 record of the week. And the ratings were through the roof, and the whole world knew me. And I had my own bumper stickers, WBAB, Jackie 922-WINE, Martling, blah, blah, blah. And then Rick Dees got a hold of the joke line, and he called me up because it got dirtier and dirty. He called up, finally one day he called up and said, listen, I've been using your jokes, but they're too dirty. Will you do some jokes for me specifically? And I said, all right. And he was number 1 disc jockey in California. And he also had a top 40 syndicated show in every country, in every city, in every town in the United States. And I gave him my jokes, and he named me Jackie the Joke Man Martling. And he used to tell people that 516-922-9463, used to tell his audience that was Tom Selleck's home phone number. And my joke line went through the roof. It was 10 lines in my mother's attic. And the calls from all over the world. Once again, it's not a believable story. But
what year is that?
I am.
What year is that?
That was, he started calling in, it must have been 1983, because when I started with Howard, I was Jackie 922-WINE Martling. And then after the first 2 weeks I was with him, Howard called me up and said, I got some bad news. I thought, well, I guess that was pretty short-lived. And he said, we love you, but we can't promote 922-WINE anymore because we got complaints because it's dirty, which was the exact same reason that Rick Dees called me up. So I went from being, Howard used to promote me as Jackie 922-WINE Martling, and all of a sudden I became Jackie the Joke Man Martling. And that was the transition. So for a while I was on Rick Dees, which is white bread, and Howard Stern, which was dark, it was Los Angeles versus New York. And I was on both. And it was like, it was just a little schizophrenic. It was great,
And when you're first working for Howard, are you basically you're listening to what's going on the air and you're just feeding him jokes to say? Or are you doing them all yourself?
I was sitting there and chiming in and laughing and having fun. But I wasn't, I wasn't really writing things down. That happened so slowly, so gradually, because I'd think of something funny, but it wasn't my place to chime in. Here and there I would. And then I realized, wait, I got way too much to offer. And then I started slowly but surely passing. It was so gradual that I can barely piece it together. But when he got fired and we went to K-Rock, they actually had a place for me to sit and write, and a place where I could reach his loose leaf, and I started at 2 days and I went to 5 days pretty quickly, because truth be told, he was a lot funnier when I was there punching it up for him,
Mm-hmm.
and we got really funny, and then all of a sudden Fred could write and pass it to me, and I could pass it to Howard, and we were such a well-oiled machine. It was frightening. It was frightening how fun it was.
When you guys would be going through and you're telling all these jokes and you're talking about personal things with each other, are you guys really hamming it up for the air, or is everything just like it would be if you were backstage just talking in a green room?
No, there was, it was never like, hey, you know what we're going to do today? I'm going to talk about my mother, and then you chime in something about you. Everything was spontaneous and organic. You know what I mean? I'm sure there was a certain amount of theatrics or a little embellishment, but no more than it would be if you were in the locker room, or, you know what I mean? Like, it was all real stuff. It was all real stuff. I tell people the only lies that Howard told was when he said a girl was a 9 and she was really a 2.5.
Wait, so were there any times that you guys are having these conversations and they're really ragging on you and they just got too personal and you actually really got pissed off?
Yeah, but not me. It's funny. They can't see you bleed. You know what I mean? If people, you can't say ow. They'll keep hitting you, It's funny, like they used to attack me or they'd attack my wife, and I would wind up making a joke. And it wasn't that I was making light of anything. That was how you would get out of it,
Yeah.
But we, pick on, but what you would do is you would switch the focus. If everybody's like, blah, 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 all of a sudden, you try and point it to somebody else. I was good. I always tell people I was like Bruce Lee, standing in the middle of all those guys. I got Howard and Robin and Fred and Gary and John all coming at me at once, but I could handle it. Fred would not fight with Gary or John. Fred would only fight with me because it was a level playing field. He knew I could take care of myself, and it was all in fun. It really was, I mean, they'd be really horrible, about stuff and really unfeeling, but that was the timbre of the show. It's, if you don't like the heat, get out of the kitchen,
Yeah.
And everybody took it and everybody got it, I mean, I was the only one that really gave Robin a hard time, but everybody, and I know the guys really loved that because they did,
Your shit, reading Robin's biography with you doing her voice was some of the funniest shit. When I was in high school, I used to go back on YouTube and find all the illegal uploads of old Howard episodes, and you doing the Robin voice, reading her stories from her book, is some of the funniest shit I have ever heard.
We used to go to screenings, or we'd go not out to lunch, but we like HBO screenings or Showtime screenings where they show us a movie or show us a new TV show. And even if it was a block away, we couldn't walk, because Howard was too well known. Or if they saw even when he wasn't all that crazy well known, New York City, so we would get in a limo, and it's New York City. So we'd be sitting in a limo, even if we were only going 5 blocks, we might be in the limo for 45 minutes, And one day Robin came in, and she gave everybody a copy of her book, So we all had a copy, and I always had my bag with my crap in it, my jokes, my notes. And so we're going to a screening, and of course I'm going home after that. So I got my bag, and me and Howard and Gary and Fred and probably Ralph, Robin, we're all in the car, and we're stuck in traffic, and we're not going anywhere. And I looked down, and I took the book out of my bag and just opened it at random and started reading it, and they went berserk. Everybody, and the more upset she got, the crazy. He said, you got to do that on the air tomorrow. You got to do it on the air. So I don't know if I did it 3 times or 33 times, but it was such a home run every time. It was so.
Yeah, you and Fred going back and forth, and then Fred would be doing something. I'd hear you'd be in the background going in the back. That was such great shit.
It was absolutely incredible chemistry, and to this day I don't even know. To Howard, it was always the Howard Stern show, and everything else was besides the point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just patently untrue. He's the greatest broadcaster in the world, and he's brilliant and funny, and the show is 99.9% him. But that other 0.1% was very, very important.
It's vital to
it. And everybody knows that. Everybody knows that,
I don't think anyone, I mean, even if you go and you listen to the people, if you go on the fan pages of Howard right now, they just butcher him. And they always talk about like how he needs like a less of a role, and they're the Howard people. So I think there's very few people who would say that it just needs to be Howard,
It just really was. So I get emails. You wouldn't believe the emails I get. You play in a band.
Yeah.
You'll appreciate this. This was one of the finest crafted compliments I ever got. It was probably a couple of years ago, but a guy wrote to me and said, Jackie, I'm from Toronto, and I became a huge, huge Howard Stern fan. The minute I heard it in 2007, I became a huge Howard Stern fan. I'm only 26 years old, but I'm a huge Howard Stern fan. And after listening to the show for a while, I discovered the older shows on YouTube. And he said it was the equivalent of having a new favorite band and then finding out that their early albums were much better. How is that for an analogy, huh? Is that great? I was like,
that's a great analogy.
And that was so complimentary. I told the guy, I said, I'm going to repeat that 1,000,000 times, man.
Shout out to that guy.
It was really fun, And you don't want to over-aggrandize, because there's no there's no watering down what a mark he's made and how incredible he is. And I don't think that he deserves all the money and all the acclaim and everything. He just should have shared a little bit more, but that wasn't in his nature. And what can you do? People say, oh, Jackie, you'd be so rich now. I am rich. Mm-hmm. I don't have any money. I couldn't be more broke, but I live in a house. I live where I've always wanted to live my entire life. I said, I want to live on the beach in Bayville. And I live on the beach in Bayville. I want to live with a pretty girl. I live with a pretty girl,
So you're happy. You're totally content.
Yeah, no, I'm a miserable bastard, but, I'd be a miserable bastard. If I was in Malibu looking off a cliff in a gazillion-dollar home, I'd be the same miserable prick,